Hello and welcome back. Randy Bueller, joined by Steven Menendian, who just played yet another epic match against Luis Scott Vargas. It always seems to happen when you guys.
Tell me about it. And I tend to be on the losing end of these epic matches.
Hey,
but
you got him in the season 1 playoffs. That was the most important one, right?
That's fair. That's fair. I'll take that. That was
please.
just super intense. And I don't play a lot of workshop, obviously. So the big thing is I'm not sure whether I should have sacrificed all of those Moxen. Had it occurred to me that might cut me off from playing a subsequent Thought Knot Seer, I don't know if I would have particularly gone that route. But
yeah, I mean, I can see what you were trying to do with building up the Ravager so that you could just minimize the number of turns you had to give him.
Exactly.
I did occur to me when you ate the Mox that you were down to 3 mana plus a workshop. Like you had your Triskelion mana all lined up, which I'm
exactly.
Sure is
exactly. That was my main calculation. I just need to get 6. And I did not see balance coming for a million years. And when he played Vamp, I was like, okay, how is he going to get out of this? Right? Like, what's the answer? Because with Vamp plus top is 1 card. He had no cards in his hand. Right. And, of course, he found the answer. He found Dig Through Time. I suppose he could have just probably Vamped for balance.
No, you wasted his Tundra.
Oh.
You wasted his Tundra. He would have Vamped for balance, but you wasted his Tundra, so he had to Vamp for Dig Through Time to find White Source plus balance.
Oh, my God.
Which is what he found. Yeah, he dug for a Tundra and a balance.
That is not fair. That's just not fair.
It was yeah. I mean, Luis did basically everything right there. It was a super tough match to win from his side, but he's really good, it turns out.
Yeah, and he even did the little things, like he put the top on the stack, the spin on the stack, then did the dig, and then everything. Yeah. My decisions weren't easy either, but they weren't nearly as, I think, challenging as what he had to go through.
So you joined the Eldrazi side of things. That's new.
I've joined the dark side.
Well, the workshop side of things, really. Just for Thought Knot Seers, I'm guessing. You're on basically the workshop side, no smashers?
No, I'm playing Montolio's Eldrazi shop deck with some cards built for the sideboard built for the mirror in the sideboard. So you'll see I've got some Wormcoil in there, Wormcoil action. But yeah, I mean, I've watched this thing unfold, right? And for years I've decided not to play the shop deck, and I can play shop, so I'm like, well, why not surprise people and play shops? Yeah. I mean, people probably would not put me on shops, so that's a reason to play it. And then it's also it's just insane. I mean, when Grixis Eldrazi got second place in the NYSC, I was like, I bet Randy's going to be pretty enticed by that. So I had you on playing that as one of 3 decks, and I just think the shop deck is just. I really widened my scope. And I'm so impressed with what Paul Rietzel's been doing in this event, in this tournament. It takes not only skill, but it also takes confidence and courage to play, such out of left field decks, because, you don't want to like go 0-3 and then look, oh God, why did I make this crazy decision? Right. So, I just thought I'd take a card out of his deck, and I decided to test a much wider range of decks. And after just hours and hours and hours of testing, the Shop Eldrazi deck was just by far the best. Not by far the best, but it was the best. It was just the most consistently outperforming everything else in my gauntlet. So I thought I'd give it a spin, and it's a lot of fun. And I think, I usually play Gush, but Gush just it's interesting that you restrict Lodestone Golem, and yet Gush actually feels worse right now because dealing with Thalia and Thorn and all that nonsense. So I was like, I'm not gonna climb that mountain, at least not just yet. I'm gonna play something that I think is just really strong. And the Shop Eldrazi deck and Thought Knots here is just incredible, just incredible.
Makes sense. Now, we've got 1 match left tonight. Eric Froehlich on Twitter earlier today was wondering if he could officially change the name of his deck to Poop. Does not sound super confident. I have no idea what he's brewed up, but I'm curious.
I think we all are.
He is our lone 3-0 in the league at this point, and he's paired against Shuhei Nakamura, who has submitted 3 decks for various VSL tournaments to play in, 2 cracks at the play-in, plus the first set of decks for the regular season. All 3 of them have been Brian Kelly's Oath deck.
Yeah.
So is this just the only vintage deck he's ever played, or are we finally going to see some range from Shuhei? What do you think?
I suspect he's going to come with something novel, something interesting. He's got a pretty big network of players that he can tap into, who can give him. There's a lot of Japanese players who love vintage, so I'm sure he's got a lot of friends who can suggest some decks. I suspect they probably pooled some of their intelligence, and I expect to see him coming up with something interesting. This is the time to try something novel, in my view, and we've seen a lot of success with novel decks. I almost played a novel deck, but I ultimately decided to shop Eldrazi. So I think we're going to see something different, right? Right. Something different here.
Now, you went over to Japan for the Age of Vintage Championship earlier this year, which Shuhei won. That's the fourth known vintage deck he's ever submitted. Also a Brian Kelly Oath deck. Did you get any sense, does he play a lot of vintage, or is just like, hey, they invited me to play this thing, so why not?
I think it was like, this is a cool opportunity. He wasn't he wasn't the only Hall of Famer in the room, right? I mean,
Shota played that tournament as well, right?
Shota was there, and Shota's played vintage before. In fact, both of them played vintage on the Magic Invitational with me years ago. We had a vintage section.
I forgot about
that. And I got third place in that event, and Shuhei and I actually had an unintentional draw in round 4 or 5, which is unfortunate because I really wanted to play him a full match. But my sense is that he probably doesn't play a lot of vintage, but there are a lot of vintage players who are more than willing to help him out. And Shota has a lot of range in terms of vintage. I've seen him play a ton of stuff, so I think we're going to see something interesting here.
All right, well, it sounds like our players are ready. Let's go find out what Eric brought to the table and what Shuhei brought to the table. Hello and welcome back. Shuhei Nakamura, he's going to dance with what brung him. This is the deck he's been running. This is the deck he's got the most experience with. He's stuck to his guns with an Oath deck. Eric Froehlich says, city folk just don't understand. It's merfolk, ladies and gentlemen.
Wow. Throwback time to the earlier seasons of VSL.
Merfolk has done well in VSL. I did the archetype breakdown. We showed it a couple weeks ago. Merfolk's like 60% lifetime, and it's been played 15, 20 matches.
No doubt. Shuhei is on Oath here, but this pair of spell snares suggests that he might not be playing a Brian Kelly Oath deck. This might be a different flavor.
Interesting, and he is on the play. Wow, he gets to go turn 1 Oath if he wants to. He doesn't have the Forbidden Orchard to turn it on, but his opponent's playing a Merfolk deck. This is terrible news for Eric.
Well, Shuhei's Moxland Oath is one of his signature plays at this point.
True. Yeah, I might keep running back Oath too if I always had that draw.
Yeah, this is very difficult for
Now, Eric didn't actually have a source of blue that he could use to cast Ancestral Recall with when he kept that hand, right? He did top deck a Lotus Petal, so I presume you sack it for blue and try to get an Ancestral off while Shuhei's tapped out. That's exactly his line.
Yeah, I mean, we have seen Merfolk decks race Oath before, but you've got to get off to a fast start.
Yeah, we have not seen them race turn 1 Oath.
Right. Yeah.
Eric even has to discard the hand size here. Yikes.
It's interesting. There's a little tactical battle here, right? Because as soon as Shuhei plays a blue land, it turns on Merfolk, right? Well, I guess he doesn't know what his opponent's playing, but...
Right, yeah, the Island Walk can be relevant.
Walk. That's what I meant, yeah.
They oath up a Grizzlebrand or something, but you Island Walk around behind it. It's so tough to build up the force of Merfolk. You need a couple turns.
Yeah, and who needs islands when you have Max Sapphire and Black Lotus?
True, too. Well, I think Shuhei's about to figure out what's going on. Presumably, Eric's going to name Merfolk here.
It's possible that Shuhei is still not even going to know exactly what's going on. Even if he names Merfolk, he might just have no clue what Merfolk does in Vintage.
Well, they're creatures. I'm sure he knows that much. There's the Force of Will. A little late. I don't think Eric can start playing out Merfolk. I think... Wow, but his hand, he's going to have to start discarding next turn. Yeah, I don't think you can play a Merfolk into an Oath here. It's too slow. He, I think, needs to build up 4 land, maybe 5 or 6 land, and just go, creature, attack you, creature, attack you, and hope that that's good enough. It's
Yeah, and the more time you give Shuhei, the more, I guess, chances he might just draw his creatures. I mean, at this point, of course, he could almost hardcast Griselbrand, but it's not like you have much choice. So how many lands does Eric need before he can actually begin playing a creature? Probably 5, at least 5.
Yeah, I think at 4 you go Lord. Yeah, that doesn't seem good enough.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't even think you can get yourself 2 attack phases. Like if you're gonna need to attack twice, that means you have to give Shuhei a turn. He's probably running the Time Walk. Like,
yeah, so maybe you just try and find Time Walk and Lotus or something. Get really lucky. Seriously. Okay.
I guess I'm mildly surprised he discarded Curse Catcher. I might have discarded True Name or Phantasmal Image. Just because when he finally does start playing creatures, he's going to want a 1-drop, I bet.
Yeah.
But I mean, look, these are all like trying to turn your 1% chance into a 2% chance. This
exactly.
Ugly.
A Null Rod might help even things up a little bit, but it might take him to like 2.5% or something. We're gonna get to see most of Eric's deck as will Shuhei here.
I gotta think Eric put Shuhei on anything other than Oath, right?
Yeah,
there's no way Shuhei runs Oath for the 5th or 6th consecutive time or whatever.
I would have given Shuhei, you have to give him about a 50% chance of playing it, but I wouldn't give him much.
Then why do you play Merfolk?
Well, I suspect if you go back and look at the matchup of Merfolk versus Oath in the VSL, it's probably pretty close results. You go look in the data.
That's fine. I mean,
yeah,
that's not that big a sample size. It's not a good matchup for Merfolk.
It's not where you want to be strategically.
Oh, now he's got the Forbidden Orchard. So.
All right, well that will.
The gig is up. UGLY. Eric ain't got no alibi. He's not playing the Orchard? What is going on?
What is going on? He only needs to tap it once. Okay.
Eric doesn't care.
Eric's seen enough. Thank you, Eric. Oh, wow. Well, this gives us almost a sort of nice cross-section of vintage normal and then vintage extreme. We've got Evil Oath to the... Let's see what Shuhei actually has here. Shuhei, is that a salvagers in there? Is he still? It looks like he may still be. He's on the salvagers plan still. He just ran it right back. Why not? Bad. We've seen VSL members run back decks before. I think you run back Merfolk. I think.
I mean, I took a break in between, but people in general running the deck a second time in a row has not worked in general. I mean, there's certainly people who've run the same deck multiple times, but usually there's like a break in between, or they've gotten crushed by metagaming.
Or they've made significant adjustments. Yeah.
Shuhei is just next leveled us. He's clearly next level to Eric. I wonder who his other opponents are.
I was going to ask if you face him, but
I do not. I play you, Rich, and Brian Kelly.
So you and me both face Shuhei in the final trimester.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, my schedule is mono vintage ringers.
Well, I think we're a good bet that Shuhei's going to run it back again.
Shuhei plays Brian Kelly next week, so the Oath pseudo mirror.
Interesting.
And then he plays Kai in the last round, who's on the Painter Servant combo. So a creature-based combo deck? I don't know.
Yeah, I kind of had a feel for what Brian was doing because I've been running into him, doing some playtesting with him. Interesting, I overheard you guys talking about the Tidespell Tyrant that he uses. The actual kill is you can draw your whole deck with Jace, with infinite mana, with blue Mox. So you can blue Mox, off-color Mox, get infinite mana, play Jace, bounce the Jace, you get infinite mana, you replay Jace, draw 3 cards, bounce Jace. Of course, that's a lot easier to do off Magic Online.
Sure.
But you can draw your whole deck with Jace, a blue Mox, and Tidespout Tyrant, and
then you just get like Vault Key or something.
Whatever, right? I mean,
well, you have to kill it with something. I'm like,
yeah. I don't think he has Vault Key, but you can draw your whole deck if you'd like. That seems like it's usually a starting place for winning the game.
That's very cute and all. It still doesn't actually win the game, but sure. Oh, funny, but he's got the scroll rack, so he never gets decked. Right, he can win with whatever. He can just set up time walks.
What?
Eric just conceded the entire match?
Is that enough?
Oh, it's a bug. Okay, great.
I was like, well, we've never seen that before.
No, Eric even had a Grafdigger's Cage in his hand, it looked like.
Oh, man.
Not sure what happened.
Not happy with that.
Did their match terminate itself accidentally, or is this a bug with... It's a sideboarding bug. It might be the sometimes when you're observing matches, there are bugs. Like, we may just need our client to go in and observe again.
I think the wildest bug is the tangle wire bug you've encountered. Tangle wire trigger goes on the stack. Select your opponent's sideboard.
Well, I think if Tangle Wire doesn't see enough cards to tap, it looks for other places to find cards that you can tap.
Yeah, including a completely hidden zone. My sideboard.
Crazy.
That's the craziest one I've seen.
All right. So is their match? Oh, they're still in sideboarding.
Yeah, they got connected.
Okay, they just restarted. No problem. So Eric is up. Eric is down 1-0. Eric is going to be sideboarding in his Grafdigger's Cages, and we're running back game 2.
Oh, we've encountered the same problem, right? Bug. Again. Okay, we'll work through it. Hang tight. Well, it's interesting that from Shuhei, although we've seen a lot of fast oaths, Shuhei really is not all about the oath. He's really leans on the Jace tactically when he plays this deck. He tends to go for the most conservative lines, although it's fascinating how Paul was able to break through that at one point. But this is a particular match where the Jace is probably at minimal effectiveness. It's not against, like, even combo decks. You can get a lot of value of the card advantage to help sculpt your hand, but against Merfolk, it's just really difficult, especially if you can get True Name down. True Name, I guess. Wait, no. That doesn't work. Jace can bounce True Name, right?
No. It has protection from you and everything.
You and all of your Planeswalker friends. Right.
Exactly. Yeah, so Eric noticed that his deck had 61 cards, which is what was led him to go. That was the bug that he was trying to deal with. So they're going to restart the match. Eric will just concede game 1. They'll go to game 2, and Will should be back momentarily.
So what do you think of what we've seen so far?
It's interesting. I guess the only Eldrazi decks we have are the Workshop Eldrazi, which is only... No, we have 3, right? We have 2 of the Workshop. Yeah. We have a Jaco Eldrazi and 2 of the Workshop Eldrazi, which... Is that really an Eldrazi deck? I was having this conversation in the chat. It's got 4 Thought-Knot Seers and 4 Eldrazi Temples in what is otherwise basically a Ravager Shops list.
Well, I think the fact that even though it has a minimal amount of Eldrazi, the Thought-Knot Seer kind of has a pride of place. It's just snuck into the position that Lodestone Golem had, And
that's my point. It's still a Workshop deck in my mind.
I agree with that.
It just happens to run Thought-Knot Seers. I don't know. All right, here we go. Game 2, Oath versus Merfolk. Eric does have a Black Lotus. That's a good card. Oh, that's a Daze. Interesting. And a Time Walk. I wonder how he plays this.
Eric has seen enough of turn 1 Oath. Daze. Beat Daze.
Well, you got to be on the play to make that work.
And
Shuhei has the Forbidden Orchard, but he has neither the Mox nor the Oath. Also, he's got Grizzlebrand in his opener, which is basically a mulligan anyway.
This is a really miserable hand for Eric, actually. I don't know if Eric can actually keep this. He doesn't have any waste effects. He has no creatures. He has, at best, he can hope the Time Walk into something. It's a poor use of the Time Walk.
Yeah. I think both players should mulligan. I don't like either one of these hands.
Shuhei's
I like Eric's a little better, but look at Shuhei's 6 non-Grizzlebrand cards. They're still mediocre. So it's a pretty clear mulligan for Shuhei. Now he's got a hand with no green mana, but he does get a scry and he's on the draw, so I think you keep that one.
And Pyrite Spellbomb is actually might be at peak power around here. Pretty darn good.
It actually counts as removal in this matchup, doesn't it? What did he scry? Did he scry Forbidden Orchards at the top? Close enough.
Yeah, turn 1 Oath, which
still turn 1 Oath.
So Shuhei's going to have to blast out 2 forces to stop a Daze. You know what's interesting? If I was Eric, I would have played the Lotus to hardcast Daze, because you really don't want to return this island to Daze. It's such bad value. I mean, I know pitching Lotus to Daze sounds just as bad, but I guess you have Lotus, Time Walk, and a card. I don't know. I would have considered it.
I see your point. His line seems fine to me. And yeah, if it's the Oath player, you do what you got to do. Yes, Force of Will to Daze.
At least playing the Lotus gives you the option, I guess. Yep. There we go.
He's going to want this Lotus now. Now he needs to build up the hand of like 6 creatures.
He needs a good top deck.
He's got a Black Lotus. He's got a Time Walk. He can hypothetically build to a hand that goes, 3 creatures, Time Walk, kill you.
It's insane. And Shuhei also has the misstep for Grafdigger's Cage. So he's got all the time in the world. I mean, he expended his entire hand to get down to to get this Oath down, and Eric is in infinite land.
I mean, in this matchup, the Oath is just that good. It is very close to 2 mana win the game.
It's like the Bazaar in the Dredge matchup. It's just so much card advantage. Now, Eric decides not to play the Cage. There's no pressure.
Yeah.
There's no Orchard in play, so makes sense.
Yeah, even if Shuhei comes up with an Orchard, Eric can then decide, okay, I guess I need to play Cage here. But he knows Shuhei plays Missteps, Force Wills. He would definitely prefer to be able to defend his Cage.
It's interesting. There's some ways this parallels the previous game, except that Eric now has all the lands he needs.
Right. Right. It's a huge difference. Interesting.
Shuhei has used 2 forces. So when drawing the Misstep, I think it's totally justifiable to decide to run out the Cage here.
Yeah, and you see Eric has paused, right? He's thinking about it.
Yeah.
He's wondering if now is time. If he goes for Cage, missteps to misstep, if that works, now we can start actually playing out Merfolk. But it's funny, the fact that he only has 1 Lord of Atlantis and there's an enemy Pyrite Spellbomb makes that that line doesn't actually get him anywhere.
Right.
Okay, now he's got 2 Merfolk.
And in fact, we're almost at the point where Shuhei in fact we are at the point where the Cage doesn't even matter. I mean, he's got 8 mana. He can hard cast the Auriok Salvagers. He can Oath up the Salvagers with the Cage in play. Draw the Cage. The Cage will prevent Oath from entering the battlefield. So then his draw step will draw it, play it, and the Oath will help find and bin the Lotus. He's already got the Spell Bomb. So Shuhei is almost at the point where Cage doesn't matter.
He does need to find it. He needs to find his Lotus to make the combo actually work.
But he does. But he can Oath. He can
hope it's above the Salvagers.
Exactly.
If it's not above the Salvagers, he doesn't get anywhere. But if it is, then
he can even Oath after it, because if he just hits the Gristlebrand, as long as it's above Gristlebrand, he's fine.
Fair.
He just needs to have at least 1 card in his library when he gets the combo, assuming Eric would scoop to that.
He would.
Yeah. Well, this is the most amount of mana I think I've seen a Merfolk deck generate without finding like Strip Mine or Wasteland. Yeah. Eric could hard cast Gristlebrand here.
I think Eric's at the point where he's going to have to discard if he doesn't do something. So it's time for Cage.
He's got double misstep.
Yeah, it's going to work. He does not have a Force of Will. He does not have anything that would counter Shuhei's Force of Will. Well, he could counter a Force of Will that Shuhei hardcasts and taps out for. That's exciting. But Shuhei doesn't have. Yeah, Shuhei doesn't have one anyway, so Eric is going to get this Cage down. Shuhei has 2 copies of Engineered Explosives, so he can blow it up.
So here's the thing. Is Eric going to deploy all these Lords? I suspect he will, right?
Yes.
So that'll give Shuhei will have he needs to hit the Salvagers and not the Griselbrand here. And if he hits the Lotus, then he can just win. He doesn't actually need to because he can explosives the Lords away. But it just makes things a lot simpler.
Interesting. Eric said go without playing his Merfolk. Wow. Shuhei cycled his Pyrite Spellbomb.
I'm kind of curious why Shuhei hasn't played Jace at this point.
He's worried about counter magic from Eric. He knows Eric's a Force of Will deck.
Yeah.
I think Shuhei wants to defend his Jace.
But Shuhei isn't going to be able to get into a position where he can defend it very effectively. I mean, he's already used 2 of his 4 forces. I don't know what he expects to use on defense to protect it. I mean, Flusterstorm is never going to, successfully protect Jace when Eric has this much mana. So, yeah, he just loves Jace, I guess. He wants to really make sure he can protect it. But it doesn't seem like that as this game progresses, he's increasing his probability of protecting it. If anything, you're giving Eric more time to outdraw you with forces. Now, this is interesting. So what Shuhei has done here is Shuhei has played explosives on... Oh, wait. I thought Shuhei was going to pay 2 red mana to play explosives on 1. Oh, he did. Indeed, he did. Okay. Yeah. That's a little trick with engineered explosives for folks who are wondering. That allows you to misstep on the stack. And
that is very clever. Can't be misstepped, but still winds up with 1 counter on it because he played it for RR. That was cute. So now Eric knows that his cage is not long for this world. Still no Forbidden Orchard for Shuhei, but you see Eric's decision to not just dump his handful of Merfolk is kind of getting rewarded here.
It's interesting. This doesn't happen very often, but this might be a game where having 2 oaths in play actually matters. If Eric tries to overcome an oath with multiple lords, and Shuhei wants to oath twice to increase his probability of... Actually, that won't work. Oh, I'm sorry, that won't work because the cage prevents that from working. But there are times,
post-cage.
Yeah, it could work post-cage where you hit the Griselbrand and the Salvagers, and you dramatically increase your chances of binning the Lotus.
Wow, Shuhei saw that his engineered explosives resolved, so he feels like now he can stick a Jace.
Time Walk Jace is insane. That's what I thought he was going to do a couple times ago.
Time Walk Jace can run into a daze if he doesn't play that Sapphire.
Oh, man.
Or, I mean, if he preordains first, like... that daze is... I mean, I saw Shuhei last turn played to have an extra mana lying around.
Oh, gosh.
So he's just going to do that.
Shuhei has found Library of Alexandria, his next favorite card. So I suspect he's just going to... Oh, what? He's found Orchard. So there's that, too.
Oh, wow. So he's going to resolve the Time Walk, then play the Forbidden Orchard. Like, if you're Eric, you just say, okay, even if you had permission.
Eric just wastelanded the Trop.
Yeah. He's doing what he can.
Yeah.
It's not like, I mean, once Shuhei finds a Forbidden Orchard, it's just too late. There's
the Mox, too, to evade the daze. The Hall of Famer has played around days.
Yeah. Wow. He's even got a fetch land left to shuffle after he brainstorms here.
It's insane.
Shuhei Nakamura, ladies and gentlemen. Does not look like we're going to have any undefeated players left in the Vintage Super League this season. Eric Froehlich 3-0'd with Dredge, but looks like he's going to fall to 3-1.
Bring you all down to us.
Yeah. Tell me about it. I'm the only one below you, Steve.
And I think we face off next week, right? So it'll be the...
it's one of the next 2 for sure.
Yeah. Will be my responsibility to try and keep you at the 0, send you to 0-5. That would not be fun. Well,
yeah,
Eric has seen enough.
Done. Wow. Shuhei runs back the Oath deck. He's now 2-2 on the regular season. He is not in the first place tie. The first place tie is now Luis, Paul, Brian Kelly, and Eric Froehlich. Luis was the only one strong enough to win from the left side this week. Apparently, the right side was the side you wanted to be on.
Wow.
Yeah, you see Brian Kelly showed up with a crazy Oath deck. He called it Evil Oath because it plays Sphere of Resistance. And in his mind, anything with Sphere of Resistance is inherently evil. Rich showed up with the Workshop Eldrazi list, very similar to the one that you showed up with. It worked for Rich against my Grixis Therapy deck. It did not work for you against Luis's Mentor deck. And then Paul continuing to just innovate his way through the format, building decks from scratch based on what he knows about the game. Played a Null Rod back to basics deck. And that's kind of the worst thing Kai could possibly have run into with his Painter Servant combo. Pretty sweet set of decks this week, don't you think?
Oh yeah, I love to see what people come in with, and Paul did not disappoint with Back to Basics. Although we don't actually know whether he had Back to Basics or not, but if he does, that's a sweet metagame card.
He sideboarded it out in the matchup, but it's in there.
Nice. Yeah, I mean that totally hoses the shops and the Eldrazi decks. I don't know how Eldrazi can deal with that. If you can get like a Propaganda and Back to Basics, that's as good as a game.
Well, he plays Eric next, so he's playing against a bunch of basic islands. Eric's Merfolk are randomly amazing there. Back to Basics does very little. Stops the caverns. I mean, Paul will sideboard it out for that matchup, I would think, with all those islands. And then it'll be Luis forced to deal with Back to Basics, where it does seem like it will be better. Interesting. Quite the week. New deck list weeks are always super sweet. And the deck lists should be posted on mtgo.com tomorrow. So I'm as eager to get my eyes on them as you guys are. What are you looking forward to the next couple of weeks? What do you think is going to be the most interesting storyline?
Well, I think that one of the key questions is whether the Eldrazi can actually win or actually will fall even further into the hole. I think that's going to be one of the key questions.
Fair.
Be resolved.
Yeah, well, also, those of you who like Vintage, there is a Power 9 challenge this weekend on Magic Online. So another big blast of data as we all try to sort of figure out what's actually going on in post-Lodestone world. I feel like we still haven't figured it out. We haven't figured out what has happened. We don't know what the right version of the Eldrazi list is or what the sudden influx of Eldrazi means for everything else. Should be a fun weekend. Should be a fun VSL set, too. So come back, same time, same place next week. We will have week 5 of the Vintage Super League, sort of nearing the halfway point. Things starting to take shape. See who's playing for the playoffs and who's playing to avoid last.
I'm not far behind you, Randy.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Community Super League actually wraps up its regular season in 2 days. So Thursday night, 2 days from now, we'll figure out who makes the playoffs in the Community Super League. Just 2 shows left in the season there. Hopefully you guys will join us then. Been fun hanging out with you, Steve.
Yeah, you too.
See you next time, everybody.